Hello and welcome. My name is Casey Cook, and I'm an Education Associate for the South Carolina Department of Education, Office of Assessment and Standards. The purpose of today's presentation is to introduce the new South Carolina College and Career Ready ELA State Standards. Also, I'll share important information pertaining to the standards as well as key components of the new document. Contact information for myself and my ELA colleagues here in the OAS is provided on the screen and will be provided again at the end of this presentation. This presentation will take about 30 minutes, so feel free to watch all the way through or pause and return at your convenience. Thank you for tuning in. During the presentation, I will provide the overview of the standards, but I'll also talk about where you can access the document. We'll review quickly the timeline for implementation. We'll talk about legislation just a little bit and the key features of the document. The presentation should help prepare educators to access information that's valuable to them, to understand the format and the design of the standards, and to plan for transition over the course of the next academic year. Before we get started, you may want to access a copy of the standard. You can do this by going to our website and clicking on District and Schools, then Standards and Learning, then English Language Arts tab, Standards link, and that will bring you to the hyperlink of the new 2023 standards document. Let's touch on the timeline just a little bit. The new standards were approved in January of 2023. This spring and summer, the ELA Education Associates here in the OAS are hard at work preparing for standards introduction, implementation, and support. In this coming school year, 23-24, the 2015 standards are still in effect and will be assessed in the spring. The new 2023 standards will not be fully operational and assessed until the 2024-2025 school year. So we have one academic year to learn and explore and prepare for transition. So why standards? Well, academic standards are mandated by law. First, academic standards help ensure that all students are held to a consistent level of expectation and that they receive a high-quality education regardless of their background or location. Standards provide a clear roadmap for what students should know and be able to do at each grade level, and they help guide curriculum development, instruction, and assessment. Second, academic standards equip educators and schools for successful student learning. Standards provide a common set of expectations for student performance, which can be used to measure progress over time and to identify areas where students may be struggling and striving. This information can be used to make informed decisions about curriculum and instructional strategies, and to target resources and interventions where they are needed most. Third, academic standards are often tied to funding and other resources, providing incentives for schools and educators to focus on specific student learning and objectives, and to work toward meeting those expectations and proficiency outcomes. Standards are not curriculum or a course of study. Academic standards ensure that students receive a high-quality education and that educators and schools are equipped and prepared for developmentally appropriate learning in their schools. By providing a clear set of expectations for what students should know and be able to do, standards help guide instruction, measure student progress, and target resources where they're needed the most. In general, standards define what all students should know and be able to do. They're clear, jargon-free, appropriate for the particular grade level, complete and comprehensible to all audiences, which would include educators, policymakers, parents, students, and the general public. Standards are rigorous. That is, they're both demanding and precise, requiring students to master challenging intellectual content and processes. Standards are written at a level of specificity that will best inform instruction, neither so narrow as to be trivial, nor so broad as to be meaningless. Standards reflect an appropriate balance of content knowledge and skills. They're aligned across grade levels for content knowledge and skill development. And standards serve as the basis for decision-making and educational policy development. They provide a foundation for the development of curricula at the district level and serve as the basis for the development of objective and reliable statewide assessments. The number and scope of standards for each grade level ensure that they're manageable for teaching and student mastery within an academic year. Before standards were revised, they were reviewed by stakeholders serving in various capacities around the state of South Carolina. Some of the recommendations made for the 2023 version were to ensure rigor and give attention to organization, measurability, manageability, clear skills progression, and comprehensiveness. So let's take a look at the 2023 ELA standards. You'll notice that the new standards contain 4 strands. Those are applications of reading, foundations of literacy, research, written and oral communication. And now let's look at the coding. So you'll notice the 4 strands I just mentioned here. And there's an abbreviation for each of those strands. Foundations of literacy is F, applications of reading is AOR, research is R, and written and oral communications is C. So in the code, we begin with the subject, ELA, the grade level, and in this example, we're looking at grade 6 coding. Then we have the strand. This strand is applications of reading. We have the standard number, so this is applications of reading, standard number 2, indicator 1. ELA, grade 6, applications of reading, standard 2, indicator 1. Now we'll look at the 7 key features included in this document. We'll look at color coding, standards map, grade level entrance statements, standards and indicators, indicator insights, overarching expectations, and appendices. Key feature number 1 is color coding. So for ease of visibility, each strand is coded with a specific color. You'll notice if you look at the standards map on page 8 in your copy of the standards, in the color copy, you'll see that the color coding shows up on your page. Now, if you have black and white, you won't notice that. If you have a color copy, you'll notice that foundations of literacy is purple, applications of reading will show up green, research is blue, and written and oral communication will be in red. So let's take a look at that page. So this is page 8, and this is the standards map, a screen grab. And you'll notice those colors here on the left-hand side indicating that particular strand. So there's your purple foundations of literacy, green applications of reading, blue research, and red written and oral communication. Then you'll notice the standard listed. So for foundations of literacy, we have standards here, indicators in the next column, grade levels that are addressed in those indicators or with those indicators, and then the code. And you'll notice that pattern follows all the way down. Standard, indicators, grade levels, and coding. And again, that's page 8 in your document. One thing we'll point out here is the literacy standards, and that's a big shift in the 2023 document. So we are including that explicit systematic instruction of phonics and phonemic awareness. But notice that foundations of literacy standards are primarily for kindergarten through grade 2. However, there are 2 indicators that extend into grades 3 and 5, and that is fluency and reading strategies. Zooming in and just looking at foundations of literacy, we have 4 standards in foundations of literacy. And then numerous indicators. You'll notice that grade band or grade level, and then the coding. Next, we have applications of reading. Here we have 10 standards, a bit more indicators. All indicators extend from kindergarten through English 4, and you'll notice the codes. Applications of reading, standard 1, indicator 1, standard 1, indicator 2. Then we move to applications of reading, standard 2, indicator 1, standard 2, indicator 2. For point of view and perspective, we just have standard 3, indicator 1, and perspective and purpose is standard 4, indicator 1, so on and so forth. Next, you'll notice that research is its own strand and has 1 standard and 5 indicators. Most of those indicators begin in elementary school. All begin in elementary, 2 in early elementary. The first 2 begin with kindergarten and then 2nd grade, and the remaining 3 indicators are introduced in grade 4 and all extend through English 4. And then we have written and oral communication. We have 9 standards and 9 indicators, our grade levels, and the coding. Next, we'll look at key feature number 3. Each grade level begins with an entrance statement. Each entrance statement looks similar to the one you see here. This happens to be the 5th grade example, and each entrance statement talks about when students enter that particular grade level, what they may be reading, types of text, and what they're working on, and suggestions for writing, and just other things that teachers might be interested in reading. So where are students coming to you, and what have they done, and what will they be bringing in, and what should they be taking out when they leave, and what are some other considerations for educators as they're planning for instruction. Key feature number 4 is the standards and indicators, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. On this screen, this is a screen grab from grade 5, because we just looked at the grade 5 entrance statement, and now we're looking at grade 5 applications of reading standard 1, and we see that in bold at the top of the page, and notice the green color coding. Now we're looking at the indicator. The indicator is what is the grade level language Standard language is what students should know and be able to do by the end of their academic career, but what do students in grade 5 need to be working on or learning or practicing in order to advance their skills and progression towards evaluating and critiquing. So in this case, we have evaluate and critique key literary elements that enhance and deepen meaning within and across texts. That's the overarching standard or the end of the academic career statement, what students should know and be able to do by the time they graduate and when they're college and career ready. And then 5th grade, they'll be analyzing how setting, characters, and conflict impact plot development. They'll be analyzing how figurative language impacts meaning and contributes to the reader's experience. So when teachers pay close attention to the language of the grade level indicator, and all teachers do that, students are working very systematically toward the end outcome or the college and career ready goal, which is the standards language. You'll notice that same pattern follows throughout this screen grab, where teachers will see the standard and then the grade level indicators. The standard and the grade level indicators. Another new feature is key feature number 5, and that's the indicator insights. Indicator insights are really intended to simply assist teachers in the understanding of the indicator and the language. This is to help build fidelity among understanding what that indicator entails, what it means, and indicator insights will simply be helpful for teachers depending on their level of experience and their level of expertise. So they're not intended to clarify the indicator, but to make more sense of the language of the indicator. And you'll notice in almost at the second to the last sentence, indicator insights are not providing clarification for assessment. Again, the purpose is to assist in understanding the indicator. It also builds on previous indicator insights, so teachers may want to refer back to previous grades and read previous grade level indicators as well as indicator insights for earlier grades. Key feature number 5 is looking more deeply at that indicator insight and looking at the examples. So we were looking previously at grade 5. Now we're looking at the grade 5 indicator insight. So while we talked a moment ago about the overarching standard or the college and career ready learning objective is evaluating and critiquing key literary elements that enhance and deepen meaning within and across text. In 5th grade, students are analyzing setting, characters, and conflict, and how figurative language impacts meaning and contributes to the reader's experience. So notice the indicator insight here. This indicator insight is specifically for the application of reading standard 1, indicator 2, and it'll appear right after the indicator that it is addressing. So when we think about analyzing how figurative language impacts meaning and contributes to the reader's experience, some insight is instruction can go beyond listed terms and should include all previously learned terms. That can include alliteration, onomatopoeia, descriptive phrases in words, imagery, similes, personification, and idioms. And just below that, if we look at another indicator insight, this statement is giving insight to applications of reading standard 3, indicator 1, which is right above. And this simply lets the educator know to see the glossary for additional insight on point of view and perspective. And the glossary is a supplemental document that will be released in support of the standards document, and it's separate from the standards. Key feature number 6 is overarching expectations. So this is different from the overarching standard. The overarching standard is the college and career-ready learning objective. It's what students should know and be able to do by the time they graduate. And it's a very specific skill or process that students are developing over the course of their academic career. But overarching expectations are fundamental skills and processes that are just simply interwoven into the fabric of English language arts across all grade levels. These are perpetual, ongoing practices, and they're not separated from conventional classroom instruction. These are not specific standards or indicators, but simply statements of expectations of what students do as readers, writers, thinkers, and communicators at every level. So we'll look more closely at what the overarching expectations includes. So we have given overarching expectations its own code, so OE, and there are 6 statements. Reading and writing for a variety of purposes, including academic and personal, for extended periods of time. Acquire, refine, and share knowledge through a variety of multimedia literacies to include written, oral, visual, digital, and interactive texts. Make inferences to support comprehension. Collaborate with others and use active listening skills. Cite evidence to explain and justify reasoning, and create quality work by adhering to an acceptable format. The overarching expectations is another kind of new shift from the 2015 to the 2023 version. This was not included in the previous version. And again, these are expectations of what students do as readers and writers and thinkers at all grade levels and oftentimes across content areas. If we zoom in on one in particular and we look at overarching expectation number 3, we'll notice that this expectation says make inferences to support comprehension. And what we've added on the right is the progression. So we have overarching expectations, and then we provide a progression so teachers can gain perspective about that particular overarching expectation at each grade level. Or grade band, I should say, not grade level, but grade band. So we've got our early elementary, 3 through 5, and then middle and high school together. And key feature number 7 is appendices. So there are 3 appendices, and we'll look more closely at 2 of those. One is the vertical progressions. Vertical progressions provide educators with a framework that can assist them in vertical planning to enable scaffolds for students who may need extra support. Vertical progressions are presented in tables to reflect the process of begin with the end in mind, meaning each table begins with the overarching standard or that college and career ready goal, and then backward maps from English 4 to kindergarten, allowing educators to focus on learning goals throughout the student's K-12 education. We like this particular presentation because it allows educators to quickly view the progression in skills and language, including when key terms are introduced. The key terms are going to be presented in bold as they're introduced into the language of the grade level indicators. This is the grade band articulation for Foundations of Literacy. And you'll notice that you have the code for ELA, Foundations of Literacy, Standard 1, Indicator 5, 6, and 7. And you'll notice that In Standard 1, Indicator 5, there's a kindergarten indicator and a first grade indicator, but there's not an indicator for second grade. In ELA, Foundations of Literacy, Standard 1, Indicator 6, you'll notice there's not an indicator for first grade or second grade. But in Indicator 7, there is an indicator for kindergarten, first, and second. Now we'll look more closely at the vertical progression, and we'll talk one more time about standards versus indicators. So this is a screen grab of ELA, Applications of Reading Standard 5. The overarching standard, or the college and career ready goal at graduation, is at the top, and we have the backward mapping. This happens to be the argument and rhetoric standard, and you'll notice the grade level indicators. English 4 is at the top, and you notice that backward map all the way to kindergarten. So if you notice, this is almost like a stair step of skills and progression. So when teachers give good attention to the expectation of grade level indicators each year, then students are prepared for the skill progression at the next level. So if you look at this particular standard, students are identifying an author's opinion in kindergarten. That progresses to identifying and explaining differences between facts and opinions. And notice that bold, because it's showing new skills being introduced and developed. In grade 2, the skill developed is reasons, and then claims, evidence. Grade 5, argument. Grade 6, identifying types of reasoning used and or the rhetorical appeals, all the way to English 4, where students are able to evaluate and critique multiple arguments on the same topic. If teachers are paying attention to their grade level indicators, students will be prepared each step of the way for that skills, progression, and development. And finally, we are sharing a table of the supplemental materials that are in design and draft as we speak. These will be coming out soon in support of the standards document. And again, these are supplemental resources that will be available for teachers depending on their needs, their level of experience and expertise. The glossary will be available, a vocabulary supplement, conventions matrix, text complexity, even a rhetoric supplement will be available. So we encourage you to be on the lookout for those. They will be out very soon, and we look forward to your feedback. We wanted you to know that we are working hard to support educators across the state and anticipating needs, and we ask for feedback from the field, and we use that feedback to create the supplemental materials and documents that you see here. We're excited to share these with you, but most of all, we're excited to begin the transition from 2015 to 2023 standards. We thank you for all that you do each day. We hope that you found this presentation helpful. Again, you'll notice our contact information on the left-hand side of your screen. You'll see our ELA team, our dynamic trio here, Mandy, Tabitha, and Brenna, and we encourage you to reach out to them if they can be of assistance or support. Thank you so much. We appreciate you watching, and stay tuned for the release of those supplemental documents very soon.